হ্যালো, আসসালামু আলাইকুম শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা। আশা করি আপনারা সবাই ভালো আছেন, সুস্থ আছেন। ইকরা বাংলাতে চলে আসছি আমি হাফসা ইসলাম, মা আমার মা নিয়ে। প্রতিবারের মতো আমার সাথে নতুন গেস্ট নিয়ে আসছি একজন, যার নাম হলো শেখ আমিনা খানম। তো তার সাথে কথা বলবো আমরা। আমাদের স্টুডিওতে ফোন দিতে পারেন, আমাদের ফেসবুকে লাইক করে বা ফলো করে আমাদের ফেসবুক পেজে অ্যাক্টিভ থাকতে পারেন। আর আমাদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেলেও কিন্তু আপনারা আমাদেরকে দেখতে পারেন, প্রতিটা প্রোগ্রাম এখানে শেয়ার করা হয়। তো আমিনা, ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো।
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good.
How was your day today?
My day was very good. It was busy, and of course, I'm here now with you to discuss motherhood, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. But before we go to that, if you want to tell the audience about yourself, তুমি কিতা করো, তোমার লাইফস্টাইল কিরকম, তুমি ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড কি তোমার সম্পর্কে একটু।
Okay, so professionally, I'm a business manager for a school. I'm a chartered business manager, but also on the side, as a hobby, I also present on radio. So I do that as a hobby, which is quite nice. It's different to what I normally do. And on the side, obviously, I have a family, I have a young child, and yeah, motherhood on the side too.
Okay. How do you feel being a mother?
Do you want the honest opinion or?
Honest opinion, definitely.
Okay, no, motherhood has been great. I do think sometimes people don't tell you everything about motherhood. So when everybody's excited, you know, you're going to have a child and, you know, you're a mother, there's so many challenges we face as a mother that those particular things aren't really discussed. So when you get to motherhood, then you realize, okay, hold on a second, nobody told me about this. So obviously there's not a manual for it that, you know, and that manual won't be fit for everybody.
No.
So you do have to adjust and do the best that you can for you and yourself.
Definitely.
But I think we always celebrate the successes of motherhood, but we don't really talk about the challenges and the barriers. And if we do, there seems to be a stigma with it. That, oh, you know, you're a mum, you should be able to do it. So a lot of the time
they act like তুমি এটা জানো automatically, being a mother তুমি automatically এটা আইয়ে তোমার মাঝে।
Yeah, and which is fine. Sometimes your motherly instincts, of course, ikta to থাকে সবর. But sometimes people oversee that, you know, motherhood does also bring the challenges, and people do suffer with things like depression or postnatal depression, as they call it. There could be things like they just need a bit of help without being judged, without being someone looking down on them. That fatay na ekhane, you know, we had this conversation that, you know, আমি 5 কু বড় করছি, আমি 10 কু বড় করছি, আমরা একলা করছি, কোনো হেল্প আসিল না, জো আসিল না, তুমি তেন এগুরে পাররাই না. So we do face those comments, and sometimes because we try to avoid those comments, we tend to bottle it up and we try and take the pressure on ourselves. And I have seen young mothers go through severe mental health issues because they just can't discuss it.
We will come back to that.
Yeah.
About the situation of being motherhood and how they go through and what have you gone through. We'll come back to that. But before we go to all this, আমি জানতাম সাইরাম যে তোমার ফ্যামিলি ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড, তুমি ও দেশে জন্ম হয়েছো ইউকেতে।
Yep.
Right. And এই দেশের জন্ম লোকে তোমার আম্মার লোকে তোমার সম্পর্ক কিরকম আছিল? বিকজ বাংলাদেশের একটা সিচুয়েশন থাকে যে মার লোকে হয়তো মেয়েরা কানেক্টেড থাকুন বা অনেকে কানেক্টেড থাকুন না, তারা অনেক কিছু শেয়ার করতে পারে না বিকজ আমরা জেনারেশন মা হলে লোকে তারা ফ্রেন্ডলি একটা সম্পর্ক থাকে না। তোমার সম্পর্ক কিরকম আছিল?
So so when I talk about myself, I feel like I was stuck between two generations because I'm at that age where neither am I either like the new generation nor am I the old generation. So I got a balance of both, where you do have that respect and you do have that boundary with your parents, but at the same time I feel as though I also had the advantages of being able to share things and being quite open and you know, even if we look at like my siblings, for instance, they might say their experiences have been very different.
How many siblings do you have?
So I've got 5 siblings, and they're all older than me, so their experiences might be different to mine. And you know, there is the thing that they'd always say, "Oh, you get away with murder," and I guess it might be a generation gap.
Is that the younger generation thing?
Yeah.
I think it's generation gap.
Yeah,
also.
but you know, some of the things that I talk to my mum about, like you know, some, you know, if we're talking about health issues, for instance, like women's health and things like that, they wouldn't really have the guts to go and say, "Oh, mum, this is what I'm facing," or "What is this about?" Or "Can you educate me in these things?" But I would joke with my mum. I'd be like, "Oh, this, and this," you know, and everyone would be like, "Oh, you said that to your mum?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And they're like, "And what did she say?" I'm like, "Nothing." She laughed, and they're like, "Wow, okay then." You know, we wouldn't get away with that.
But isn't that quite surprising? যে একজনে গিয়ে মারতে পারেন, আরেকজনে মারতে পারেন না, সাহস নাই বাচ্চার। Same family, but মারতে সাহস করতে পারেন না। Why do you think this is?
I think it's that generation gap, I think, and you know, the older generation were like, they were brought up with that, oh, there's respect, you can't discuss these things, you can't talk to your mum and dad about these things, or your mum, for instance, you know, because ikta shorom or itamatu nama loge, you know. Whereas I think with us now, with the younger generation, what's happening is that if you don't discuss it with your mum or your dad, who else are you going to discuss it with?
Absolutely.
And that's the fear, that you don't want your child to go and be discussing these things with outsiders. You want them to be discussing it with you, and you want to give them the correct information.
That's right.
If we're talking about safeguarding. So I think now motherhood has changed so much in comparison to the last generation. Like with me and my little one, we're pretty much like friends. And when we go out, people are like, "Oh, your brother's going off." I'm like, "That's not my brother, that's my son." You know? So
but you look so young for your age as well. Some people remarks that, "Oh my God, I thought she was only 18 years old."
Yeah.
So she's got 7-year-old children.
Yeah. So, you know, and I have that friendship and that bond with my little one, and we talk about anything and everything. And, you know, even if we're talking about, like, now we have this generation where we're going through, you know, same-sex marriages, we've got lesbian, gay, we've got all that kind of stuff happening. And being Muslims and Bengalis, you know, we have a different take on that kind of topic. So I openly talk to my child about it, and some other people might be like, "Oh, but you shouldn't be having these conversations with your children." Like, but I would rather give them the right information and what is correct according to our culture and religion, rather than him being educated by other children. Or if we're talking about teenagers, for instance, you know, that's how you get into like grooming and things like that. So I have that bond with them, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having those open and frank conversations.
You were saying about grooming and all that. Is it because তুমি স্কুলে কাম করো দেখিয়া তোমার idea আছে, knowledge আছে? Because people where they work, they pick up things, they learn from them. So is it because তোমার কামর experience থেকে তুমি এটা pick up করতে পারছো, করিয়া তুমি এটারে project করতে পারো বা তুমি execute করতে পারো?
I think so. I do think a lot of what I do is based on, you know, from my professional life and the school life that I have, and obviously the different kind of training we have. But I do try and share my knowledge and my experience with other people. But sometimes it doesn't go right.
No.
Some people won't see right to that. They were like, "No, hold on, it doesn't work like that. We can't have this." No, it shouldn't be taught at school. I totally understand it shouldn't, but we are in the United Kingdom. We have to follow rules and regulations and stuff. But then it's up to us how we bring up our children. And you know, there's a saying in Bangla, you know, "Ma'ila masjid, ma'ila madrasa, ma'ila school." So I do truly believe that, and then it's up to us what we teach them at home.
It's true. You were saying that যে তুমি তোমার বাচ্চার লগে একদম openly মাতো about sex education and all that. এখন কি স্কুলে কিন্তু অনেকগুলা সাবজেক্ট কভার করা হয়, যেমন like you said, gay, lesbian and all that. But অনেক মা হলে তারা বাচ্চিন্তর স্কুলে দিতে চায় না বা এটা শিখাইতে চাইরা না. So I know that you come across a lot of mothers as your expertise. How would you go and tell them that it's important for them to learn because
of course
this reason?
It is important for them to
learn. And why should they learn?
Yeah, so what I say is, because obviously now we're in the generation where it is really common. Okay, you do see 2 mums or you do see 2 dads, and I don't want my child to suddenly be in the road and be like, "Hold on a second, why does so-and-so have 2 dads or 2 mums? I want them to have that knowledge that it is possible and it is accepted. But for us, being from a different religion and culture, for us it's different. So I want them to have the knowledge, but also steer them in the right way. So if we don't give them the knowledge, then they're going to be finding the knowledge online from other people. And again, is it the right information? Is it the wrong information? So knowledge doesn't hurt anybody.
No.
It doesn't mean just because you know about something, you're going to do it. It doesn't mean just because you have...
but wouldn't it be the other way around? If they don't know, they want to exploit, they want to explore.
Explore it, exactly.
More.
And I just think with... you can't... Parenting is such a thing that you can't get it 100% right. You could be at home and you can teach your child again and again and again. But when they are out in the world and they can make their own decisions and their own choices, that is where the real question comes, is that how do you control that? Because you can't. They are adults, they can make their own decisions. And even after that, if something doesn't go your way or how you wanted to be, you know, bring them up, then you've tried your best, and at least you can say you've tried your best. And that's all you can do, really.
Absolutely.
This is
I mean, the other day we were having a conversation in a group and this person was saying, oh, I groom my children like this, like that, you know, and they listen to me. Maybe a certain extent they will listen to you, but once they've grown up, once they become independent, they may not follow the rules.
Follow that, no.
So you can't really say that my children are, you know, what I tell them, they do it. Maybe because it's a short period of time they're doing it just to keep parents happy. But inside they may not be happy to do that. They may not be.
No. So, I mean, obviously the children's happiness is also really key, because a happy child normally develops really well, grows well, and they do listen to you and they do pick up all the things that are around them. And, you know, there's arguments about how certain aspects of, you know, if we're talking same-sex kind of marriages and things like that, they say it's genetic or it's, you know, you're born as that, you don't just become something like that. So it's a difficult one, it's a tough topic, but what I say is if you've tried your best and you've given it your all, if we're talking about society, you can show society that we've tried our best. If we're talking about religion, even Allah knows you've tried your best.
Exactly.
And that's all you can do, and, you know, pray that your children do end up growing to be, you know, good human beings first of all, and that's important. But I mean, motherhood, there's no right or wrong. What fits for you might not fit for me.
Exactly.
And that's what we also
every
need to
child is
understand.
different.
Every child is different, every family is different, the dynamics of every family is different. So, you know, some people are very quick to judge. They'll be like, oh, in falaya gesungitan huruta khamo tahoin khali or tain fakhanit tahoin. Of course, we have to understand that if a person is working full time, they're keeping the roof over the head of the child, they're feeding their child, you know, paying bills and stuff. They also need them time as well. Like they need, you know, me time as such.
Exactly.
So that isn't a bad thing.
No.
And we also need to, as women, I always say this, women are women's biggest enemy.
Yeah.
As women, we need to understand that, you know what, so-and-so is going through something, let me give them some space. Let me give them some time.
If I can, I should support them rather than demoralize them.
Demoralize them, or things like criticize them. You know, if you can help, help. And if you can't, the best policy is stay quiet. You don't have to say something.
Talking about, you know, demoralizing and support and all that, family, you know, sometimes the family support, they will be the worst enemy, to be quite honest. They, like yourself, you're a mother, you're working, you try to put your son into best position. And I know you work in the same school as he attends, right? But still, you're having that kind of family, mother and son bonding time always, because you're traveling together, you're going home together, you're like 24/7.
We're stuck together.
And whenever you want you time, that's when problem arises, I think. And but, you know, along that side, how does your mom takes that on board? How does she feel that, oh, I should support my daughter, I should, you know?
No, my mom has been very
that?
supportive. She basically looked after my little one when I went back to work. I had to go back to work quite soon when he was really young. And she was basically what was holding us together. And I think without her support, I wouldn't have been able to do what I do. And I say this, you know, like, এক মায়ও বুঝবো এই দুঃখ যে আমার ফুরি সারাদিন খাম করতো গরো জো করতো বাচ্চাও রাখতো একটা বাচ্চারে নার্সারি দিতে হইলে 700-800 pounds ফি যাইব মান্থলি ইগুন তাই মগিজ মারলেও জো করলে অ্যাটলিস্ট আমি একটা সাপোর্ট দিতাম ফার্ম
Of course.
right খালি it's not just financial support, you get that emotional support too. So some days, like even when I would go home really tired, I'd have meetings late, come home, the food is cooked. And that was such a big thing. Like, you know, if I was on my own, I would probably just stick something in the microwave and just have a quick meal and that's it. But to have a full nutritional meal, it made a world of a difference. And, you know, she's always been supportive of go to work, have an education, be independent. And, yeah, I mean, she's always been supportive in that way. And even now when I do want some me time, it's fine, you know, you can leave the child and go. But I think the criticism always comes from the extended sort of like relatives. Because what happens is, oh, তাই আর বার বারানি, তাই বাচ্চার লগে তাই টাইম দেনানি, তাই সারাদিন খামো, আমি তো খাম করতাম হইব, তুমি তো আগে আমার বিল দিতাই নাই, তুমি তো আমার মগিজ মারতাই নাই। So এবার গরো যদি বই রয়, oh, young furi goro boiri say go kham khas korto nani ege jo korto, so there's no winning. You can't win. Ranta farin nani, no rantam fari, but time takle rantai. And you know how with our Asian cooking, if you cook you have to like go and like fully shower, naile to tumi you're going to smell like a 5-course meal. Exactly. You know, so you have to think about all those things. If it doesn't fit in with your lifestyle, it just doesn't fit in. There's no right, there's no wrong. Someone else might be sitting at home, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You might be a full-time mother and you know, supporting your family.
That's your choice.
That's your choice. And there's no right or wrong. And again, if that works for you, and of course if you can afford to do that, then great, you know, who wouldn't want to sit at home? You know, nobody wants to go to work, you know, waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning isn't great, you know.
No.
But again, we criticize each other. And what it is, oh, thank goro boiri soin, fono bosor dori goro boiri soin, kuno kham khaz nai, jo nai, kuno education nai, ais khailech income is gor solena. You know, there's so many criticisms. Khamo gele problem, na gele problem, koi deitam. Where do you go?
That's the thing. People, they don't know where to stop. They always look for a excuse. If you're doing something good, they don't like it. If you're doing something bad, they don't like it. So you can't win with people anyway.
No, you can't. And it always seems to be the extended people that kind of know a little bit but don't know the full story. They have everything to say.
Exactly.
So
I mean, this sort of people needs to be avoided.
It does. And I think with the generation change, it is changing a little bit because now most people are working, most people are sending their children to nursery. I remember when, like about 10 years ago, when, you know, the aspect of nursery, putting your child in nursery came about, people were shocked. Ya Allah, bara manche fuafuri falito atangia ruzi korta igu manushui boni.
And it's a sutu bacche, oto sutu bacche.
Yeah, so you know, you have to understand, like, you know, okay, if we're talking about, you know, family as such, I know a good close friend of mine who stopped working to support the child. So child care fees dia la bonna goroboy son ohon horiya kita koin oh goroboy amar fuar shara foisha khilla. You know, so how do you win with this?
I know, it's very hard.
So motherhood is so tough, and I think especially being a mother, I would know how another or a new mother, what they're going through. And I think with the older generation, that's the bullies and how tough was it? You know, because you forget.
Yeah,
you forget about that, and you think, oh, you should be able to do it. Easy.
At the beginning, you were talking about going through depression after being pregnant. A lot of women, they go through postnatal depression or baby blues, what they call. So things goes escalated if not treated well, right? But a lot of mother-in-law or mothers, they don't realize that, like you were saying, that they make a comment that oh, amra to bachcha faster doshta oisi. আমরা তো এরকম কিছু হইছে না, বাট তারা লাইফস্টাইল এন্ড আমরা লাইফস্টাইল ইজ টোটালি ডিফারেন্ট হয়ে গেছে গিয়া
এখন তো পুরাও ডিফারেন্ট হয়ে গেছে। ইউ নো, দ্য আদার ক্রিটিসিজম আমরা শুনি ইজ লাইক ও তোমার তানোর লাইফ তো কত ইজি, সব তো এখন অটোমেটিক, সব তো এখন মেশিনে করিলাই, তোমার তানোর ফোনও থাকি বইয়া তুমি তাই শপিং করিলি ওখান করিলি। আই আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড, ইয়েস, লাইফ seems a lot easier, but with the generation
but
change,
it has become more demanding.
Demanding, exactly. So, you know, maybe 20, 30 years ago, income and gorsoli gise. Income and gorsalan is very, very tough unless you're a high earner. You know, like the cost of living has gone up.
Yeah.
So it does boil back down to finances again. And now, after COVID, we seem that it's boosted the working from home element. So a lot of people can work from home and they are better able to support their children. You know, they're in the same household, they don't need to go to childcare, they don't need to, you know, do other things. But then we forget that that person has been at home all day working. Then they got the children all day working. So then if they want to go out or, you know, just have me time, everybody is critical. Like even their own partners will be criticizing them. Oh, you know, you sit at home all day. What do you mean me time?
Exactly.
You know,
but if you're at home, you need more me time than anything else because you're being home 24/7.
Or even like adult time. You know, when you're talking to your child all day, you just want to have a conversation with an adult to adult, you know, conversation, not just, you know, playing and talking like a child and doing childish things. And it kind of think what it is like there's a gap in understanding that women also need that space. And if we ask for that space, it's seen as a bad thing. Actually, if somebody comes to you and asks for it, that's a really good thing because they know what they need. If they didn't ask for it and didn't do something about it, then that's the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, most of the men, if they're upset or they are have some sort of issues at home, they go out. Go out, have some fresh air, do whatever. But as being a woman, you can't just leave and walk out from the home to go and have some fresh air. Then all these questions will be raised. Where are you going? Why did you go? Even if she went.
When are you going to be back?
When are you going to be back? And if she goes for fresh air because there's the tension in the house, then so she's still stuck with the situation at home, rather than, you know, allowing her to go out for a bit. Maybe she will definitely come back home.
Maybe she'll come back home if you haven't driven her mad.
And she hasn't become totally insane, then she won't know how to get back home. But
but you know, it's women are so independent these days. So, you know, be it at home, be it at work, you know, even the fact that a lot of women drive, you know, when we were kids, we only really saw men driving. We never really saw many women driving. I think Bengali or Muslim women driving became a thing in the last kind of like 15, 20 years. It became a more of a thing to do. And, you know, we were always
and when
encouraged.
you see a woman driving, you just look at it and go, oh my God, she's got guts.
Driving.
She's driving, and you'd appreciate.
And I know this kind of culture is being taken on in like Bangladesh, for instance, in like Dhaka, you do see women driving, but in Sylhet or something, you probably won't see it as much yet. So the world around us is evolving, things are developing, but I think our mentality is still pretty much stuck.
It's stuck in one, probably 50, 60 years ago, that generation, now they were still the same mentality there.
And motherhood is such a big topic. We can talk about it all night and not finish. But you don't have to be a mother yet to understand motherhood. So what I say is, like, young couples, when they get married, for instance, they haven't got kids yet, but they are preparing to settle down somewhere and have children further along the line. But some of the stories we hear, you know, be a mother or, you know, a mother-in-law, for instance, like those children are put off from having children. They're like, you know what, if I have a child and my child is treated like that or starts treating me like that, I don't want to have children anymore. So we're creating these big, big differences that I think in the future will be a big problem. Because, you know, people are thinking about moving out of the house and things like that, and financially stabilizing themselves before they have children.
It already started. Like myself, when I got married, 3 years later, I had my first child. And I was questioned by many people, why am I not having children? I've been married for 3 years. Is there any problem with me?
It's always a woman's problem, though.
Health problem. Or I'm too ultra-modern to have any children. But I have to see my lifestyle, where I'm living at the moment, what I'm doing at the moment. Can I afford it? To have another person in life? Can I afford to give what they need?
And it's not always financial affordability,
It's
the
not just
mental
financial,
and
mental, physical, everything. Because if I'm working, so if I'm working, then how am I supposed to look after that child? I need to think all that. We will come back to that. We're going to a small break. So শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা যাচ্ছে একটা ছোট বিরতিতে, বিরতির পরে আবারও আসছি, আপনারা সাথে থাকবেন। শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা, ফিরে আসলাম ছোট্ট একটা বিরতির পর। আমার সাথে আছেন আমার গেস্ট শেখ আমিনা খানম। আজকে আমরা কথা বলছিলাম বাচ্চাদেরকে নিয়ে, মায়েদের কে নিয়ে। তো আমিনা, before we went to the break, we were discussing about children being looked after by parents, and also we were discussing that how parents force couple to have children if they have a long gap. So I believe that you had a very long gap as well after you got married. So what were the...
So basically it was, first of all, I was quite young. Second of all, being young doesn't matter. That's even better. Have children quickly.
Yeah.
But the second thing was, like, financially, I wanted to be stable, because what I saw around me was that a lot of people had children when they were young, so they didn't have the chance to complete their studies or actually make a career and stabilize themselves and then bring a child into it. And then they were suffering financially as well. And with that, obviously, it brings other issues, like we say, mental health issues, physical issues, because if you can't afford a certain lifestyle, then you are in a big problem.
Definitely.
So my thing was, it would be really silly to bring in more challenges to already a challenging time. And once you're stable, obviously you can think about having children. Now, having children or not having children is all in Allah's hand at the end of the day, but you can only try and do your best.
Absolutely.
And you know, so I think it should be up to the couple, up to the individual, and I think really and truly it should be up to the woman too, because it's her body. She knows how much she can cope with and whether she's ready or not. And sometimes we forget that, you know, the woman's body is, you know, almost a temple, you know, especially when if you're going to have children and things like that. And we are always constantly under pressure. So before we even get married, you're under pressure as a daughter, you're under pressure as a sister, you're under pressure then as a wife, then as a daughter-in-law, then as a mother. So we go through these constant stages in our life, and we just need to be very respectful that it's not our place to say. Also, we don't know individual circumstances. Hoyto kiban tara try kore, but on. And that might be very hurtful to them, because some people could be trying for years and years. That's none of your business. That's a very personal topic, and I don't think people should be questioning it, and in any shape or form.
Yeah.
I think people should be left to it. Zarzarir life liya zarzarir besto takhle ita time takhina. To be honest with you, when I'm so busy, I don't have time. Like sometimes people will like, oh, so and so had a kid. I'm like, really? I didn't even know that they were having a child. You know, like if you're busy in your own life, you don't have time for that.
No, you don't.
So I think we just need to be really respectful towards people, and especially mothers. They're doing the best that they can. No mother would want to harm their child. No mother will do bad for their child. They're doing the best that they can.
They can.
And we need to see that what your best is might not be my best. What my best is might not be your best.
True.
It's just what fits, and every case is unique and individual. And we just need to respect that. And we can't force what we did 30 years ago onto the youngsters
Because
now.
that time the lifestyle was different.
Different.
Now the lifestyle is different. Like you were saying earlier on, that you're the youngest.
Yeah.
You have totally different generation gaps. So between you and I, it's like 20 years gap. I can't expect you to say and do things that 10 years gap people would do, because their lifestyle is totally different than yours.
Yes.
You have more generation gap. So I have followed one thing, like every 10 years, every generation, there is a gap, something takes place.
Yeah.
And there's a gap being built. Like if I compare my older daughter with my younger daughter, totally different they are.
Yeah.
Younger one is more like you, sort of challenging. She will say things and she will openly say anything. But my eldest one, although she was open, but still she used to bottle things up. She never used to say it. She didn't have the courage to say it.
Yeah.
My son goes to me, if I was in her, what she's doing now, if I did that at that time, oh my God, hell will go loose.
So that's why my siblings say, oh, you always get away with murder. I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah, because that's the way it had been. But over the years, maybe parents, they understand that younger ones, they are different. They are more challenging. I find it quite challenging to, face my daughter, to be quite honest, the younger one. sometimes I don't even understand why she's behaving the way she's behaving, because my generation, then my eldest daughter's generation is totally different. And then her generation. So when I speak to my daughter, elder one, she goes, you know, this generation is like that. It's not your fault. And I'm thinking, like we were discussing earlier, that what have I done wrong? Because I'm trying to do best for the child. I'm trying to offer her best things in her life. But where am I going wrong? But it's not me. It's just the generation. What they're going through. And so sometimes parents get confused and they get really depressed about it, and they get really upset that, oh my God, what have I done wrong here? But it's not the
But
parents.
motherhood is also about constant adjustment. With our child, we're adjusting all the time. Like sometimes what my child says to me, I'm like, huh, I didn't know that when I was 6 years old or 7 years old, you know, how does he know this?
Quite frightening what they know.
Yeah, what they know and what they say, and even like the vocabulary and the language they use. You know, it's quite advanced. And, you know, alhamdulillah, that's a good thing, but it is still shocking for me in a good way. Like, oh, okay, that's a, you know, something new. And, you know, motherhood is constant adjustment.
The dictionary.
You know, as they grow older, you also grow with them. You have to change you with them. You can't still be who I am when they're like 10 years old, I'm still going to be that person. No, you have to adjust with them. And there was a generation and there was a time where the children were adjusting around the parents. Now it's turned around. We're adjusting to the children. And, you know, it's such a fragile relationship these days. Like, you know, they're independent, which is good. But I feel as though they're somewhat like disrespectful in certain ways. Like, you know, they'll be like, oh, I'll leave the house and I'll go. And I've heard that, you know, children who are 15, 16 years old. So you say, where are you going to go? Oh, I'll just go and live on the streets, or I'll go and stay with my friend. And this is the fear, like this, you know, yes, we be independent, but that respect element of it does die down. So now we're in such a fragile situation where we're like, okay, let's walk on eggshells. What do you want? Okay, you want this? Okay, then I'll give you this if you give me that.
In Bangla, we say tulu tulu khora. Bachare doriya, no, iguzaibo ge,
and it's a constant negotiation. Now, yes, there has to be boundaries. I do firmly believe you lay the boundaries. There should be rules. There should be whatever. But also, we need to understand their point of view a little bit. And you know, my parenting might be looked at like, oh, you're so chilled out. Why are you so chilled out? I'm like, so what am I going to do? I'm strict to kita lab faimu, or I'm gonna get my child is gonna retaliate. That behavior is gonna be worse. He's gonna be trying to do these things. Look at at least I'm going to kita khore. Kita dekher, kita khalloge, kita mater. So, you know, children find a way. They'll always find a way. So you can, you know, take away their devices. You can take away this, that. They'll go to school and find some new information from another child. So that's not the way. I think now friendship is really key. And the boundaries is that, okay, these are my pushing points. You cannot do this, you cannot do that, and these are the consequences for it, because there should also be that. But then I think along the way you just have to see what is really serious and what isn't.
I mean, I've seen you with your son having that kind of relationship, a friendly relationship, but at the same time I've seen you disciplining him. How do you discipline your son at home if he does something silly?
So at home, it's quite easy actually, because all I say is, I'm taking your iPad away. Or I'm taking your devices away. So that's the good thing about having those things as a reward. You can also take away the reward. And what we have at home is like a reward chart. So every time he does something good, he'll go and stick his sticker on. And then when he's got his 50 stars, then he gets a little gift or a present or whatever. Now, he's really clever. What he does is he'll be like, I want money. So you'll give him money. So when he's got his 50 stickers, he'll get his £20. He'll go and put it in his pot. Then when he goes out, oh, mommy, can I buy something with my £20? So his £20 is in the pot. So he's buying with my £20 again. So, you know.
Sounds like my younger daughter.
So kids really, they're so clever these days. Like when we were kids, we'd be like, oh, £20 sweet shop, off we go. You know what I mean? But they know what they want and how to get it.
Of course.
So yeah, I mean, discipline has to be there. Also, when we were kids, now my mom, when she disciplined us, she never had to hit us. She never had to shout at us. Enough. You know,
that's what my son and my daughter says, elder ones, because Ammu never had to hit us, but all she has to look at us and that's it. We're just gone off.
Yeah, they don't say anything. They just look at you and you're like, okay, then.
I think that's the best one though, rather than hitting and slapping and all this emotion.
Or shouting, because shouting takes a lot out of somebody's energy anyway.
It does.
Or the other thing that I like doing is like, oh, okay, then I'll take some of your stars away. So for my little one, that really works, because for him, he's like, oh, I was getting to a goal and you're going to push me back from my goal. No, okay, I'll behave. But obviously children are children, sometimes those things don't work. And what we have to remember is a child is probably going through their own emotional and physical changes. So we have to be very, lenient and kind of like understanding of what is it that they're going through as well. And family situations, circumstances, even in school, if they're going through bullying and things like that, that might be a factor to why they're behaving in a certain way. So I think getting to the root of it is the best thing to do, rather than just having an impulse reaction.
Now that you brought that up, how do you identify that your child is getting bullied in school or somewhere?
So there's loads of ways. I know different children behave in different ways. But the biggest and first sign is when they're bottling things up and they're not talking to you, they're not eating properly, they're not communicating properly, they're quite fearsome. So,
and if your child was more bubbly, more sort of
a changing character.
Not just bubbly, like education was, they were doing so well, and then they start performing very bad.
Or they don't want to go to school. That's also quite a big sign. And in older children, you get things like self-harming. So you have to watch out for those signs, that are they self-harming and things. With girls, we always find that they taramatuina, they bitri shoptara khoinar, ikhlakla bonota khoin, khirolog mata saina, jokhta saina. So amra reaction kita, oh tu to mudi khene, oh tu mudi ya life solidiboni otani. No, you shouldn't criticize. What's going on? Why are you like this? Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? See, the relationship that I have with my nieces and nephews is pretty much like really chilled out. So, moinina, hufunina, kita buzazana, like I have that friendship with them. So they'll openly come and talk to me about something and be like, oh yeah, this and this happened. Don't tell mom and dad.
That's good. That's good though. At least they have you. But a lot of the families, they don't have that kind of figure in the family to go and talk to them, because everybody's like, I'm the boss. Ami tumar boroita matta fartana. Or you can't be. The way they show that these children won't access you. So where do they go? So they start self-harming themselves. They haven't got anybody to talk to.
And having somebody to talk to is really important. It doesn't. Look, sometimes also what I see in the families is that if the child goes and talks to, sasal loge martili se mama logeo, huful loge khala loge mate, ama logeo to close na. Why do we see it in a negative way? That's a good thing. Zudiu kuchu problemo yatahe, or if there's something serious, that person can intervene. That person can let you know that something serious is happening. We start getting insecure about it, like, oh, ma baftuya hen boro igison tezaugitan goro tain khawai barakhba. You know what I mean? Like I've heard these comments before, and you shouldn't see that in a bad way. You should be happy that at least your child has got access to somebody who's sensible enough to make the right decisions and also advise them properly.
Of course.
So yes, you can have a laugh and a joke and fun, but you also know when to rein it back in, that you know what, this is wrong, you can't do this anymore.
Of course.
So it's important to have that figure. And when we were younger, we never had that. To me, mama loge matilta, sasa loge matilta, salam ko ya dor, or even like to even talk to your older siblings and things. You had to think about what is it that I can say and can't say. But I think that's changing now. I think you can see siblings are getting closer.
It is changing, but having said that, like my mom, she was very accessible. I can talk to her anything and everything. So in school, what I did, who I got on well with, who I had problem with, it's true. I used to come and tell her everything. Which boy sort of whistled at me. I used to tell my mom everything, and she used to like that. My grandmother, in the other hand, she goes, when she had me and my mom talking, having conversation like that, my grandmother goes, Ya Allah, tor furiye tor loge ye shop to mati lai dekhi jo kore. So my mom turned around and said to her, look, they don't have anyone else here in this country. And it's good that she's telling me, so I know where my daughter stands, rather than her not telling me and she's wandering off anywhere else. So don't you think it's better that she comes to discuss it with me? So I think every parent should listen to what their children is saying.
And you know, when we were growing up, there was a thing of like girls only played with girls, boys only played with boys. But but now, there is an element of that. But also, like, I feel like in this day and age, like where my little one has cousins and whatnot, I prefer that because I want to educate him as a mother that you can have friendships and, you know, your cousins and things like that as girls, but how do you respect a girl? What's the boundaries? And without him having access to girls around him, he doesn't know that. So sometimes tarar teladaka lagi jay. No, my mommy said you know, like I can't hit girls. So that is nice to see that he's picked up on that. But if he was always with boys, you know, wrestling, and they do it obviously when boys and boys get together. But you want to educate them in both ways, that this is how you act with boys, this is how you act with girls, there's boundaries, you don't cross those boundaries. And we have to be a bit more open-minded, I think. Obviously, open-minded doesn't mean no. But we have to look at it from a different, and keep an eye on your children. What are they doing? How are they playing? What conversations are they having? Who their friends are. And I'd much rather that they have friends that I know, or if it's even my own family, you know, my own nieces, nephews, that I prefer than them just having some random friend on the other side of a internet, you know, portal, you know, through games.
Of course. We were discussing earlier on that the children behavior, how do we identify? But a lot of parents, they don't want to know. Once the child goes and tells, like good touch and bad touch kind of thing, right? They go and say, amare o sasai ba o mama o bhai amare orokom jo korchen. Parents ignore it, or they say,
yeah, they brush it under the carpet.
Exactly. Shorom.
Yeah.
So how do you, you know, to those parents, what can you say to them? I mean, how they should support if a child comes and tells that this is what's going on, then shouldn't we believe our child?
Yeah, and I was having this conversation actually with my cousin today, how when we were younger, তুমি করছো তুমি না করলে ইলা উইলো না নে তুমি কিতা করছো খানা গেখো so hey, even if you're going blue in the face saying I didn't do it, this is what happened, no, you must have done something to make them react in that way. That is not on, I don't think. And you know, especially in this day and age where we are exposed to a lot of grooming, child molestation, you know, pedophilia. Your child, if your child comes and says something to you, in a bad way, good action because it's so important that each child life noshto.
Yeah.
Once that happens, it go ekta trauma. Yeah. Trauma tara shara life jay. And I know of couples who haven't been like tara biya khoriya ekhloge takhta farsoina because of that trauma. Because igu tara loge shara jibon takhe. Shara jibon takhe. So isho moi shobe dusha dushi korso no betayota korse betiota korse okhano hoise, but actually it stemmed from the trauma. So it wasn't addressed, it wasn't dealt with, but what happened is that person zar loge aki incident hoise o manush tarar biya taisla dawote.
Oh God.
So ikan dekia, obviously it triggered trauma, and from that it became a new set of challenges to deal with. So we have to address them, and if somebody is doing that, I mean, me as a mother, oh my God, I don't care who it is, I'll be like, mate, I'm calling the police, I'm dealing with you the proper way. You should not have access to children, you should not be out in public. Don't get me wrong, I believe in second chances, but those sort of people should not get second chances.
Because at the end of the day, it's affecting your child's life.
It's affecting your child for the rest of their life.
It's not just now, it's the rest of their life.
And there's a thing about when one person goes through that trauma, it continues, it's a domino effect. So they might go and do it to somebody else and somebody else. So we don't break that cycle. And if we deal with it straight away, that cycle is broken. and you can, you know, give them the emotional support that they need.
In your work environment, I know you have a lot of children. If something takes place like that, what should the parents do if they find out in school, you know, somebody did that?
If it's someone in school, obviously straight away it would be call the police. If the school is aware of something like that happening, they will call the police. Police is the first option there. Then we refer to some agency called the MASH. It's multi-agency hub, safeguarding hub. So we do a referral straight there, and they do an assessment on the phone. On the assessment, if they see it's a high risk, they will send social services, police straight away, remove the child, be it in school, be it at home, wherever it is, and put that child under protection. And they will start dealing with the child, whether it be counselling, social services, homing them, you know. And we have seen serious cases where the child is put up for adoption or foster care and things like that. And that's the right way to deal with it. You can't just say, oh, ijjot zaibugi tamatile manchezani liba. Your ijjot is not bigger than your child's safety and mental well-being.
Of course.
And I'm talking mental well-being. Some of those children are physically harmed too. And it's too graphic to explain on live TV, but some of those things that happen to those children, you cannot even believe. You know, if we're talking about a 3-month-old baby and a grown man, can you imagine what trauma that child has gone through? Yet the parents are like, oh no, we can't talk about it because it's, you know, Shorom is a taboo subject. You can't.
No, you can't. And I know children, they can be fun, they can be lovable, but yet sometimes some children lies. And they make stories about their parents.
Yes.
Right. So in school, how do they find out that actually this child, so say a child goes to school and say to them, oh, my parents beat me up or slapped me or whatever, right? How do you know that? How would you find out that this child is lying?
So we're not allowed to make a decision like that the child is lying or not lying. Straight away we do a referral. On the phone they will say, okay, these are the steps that you need to follow. They advise us basically because they're the experts on dealing with these things. Now they will investigate it straight away. True or false, that's afterwards. They will do an investigation straight away. They will go to the family home, maybe interview the parents, interview the child, and figure out what's going on. And obviously if it is a lie, it will come out that it was a lie. And sometimes the children do even say, you know what, I lied because I wanted something and my mom and dad didn't give it to me. Or if it is the truth, then obviously they take those steps to prevent anything from happening. So yeah, I mean, children do get to a stage, I believe it's when they're 7 years old, that they learn how to lie.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that because he doesn't know I'm a bigger player.
Bigger player than what he is.
So yeah, I think scientifically they say when they're 7 they learn how to lie. Okay. So and it's not because they've been brought up in a bad way. It's not because of the family situation.
It's just for the fun, I think.
It's how they develop. So your human brain is developing. They figure out, oh, if I lie about that, then it means then I can get that. And you know, they're starting to work out life basically. Yeah. And each stage is a different development stage and whatnot. So, you know, if you've got children around that age and a bit older, you will probably find that they lie a lot more. But then by the time they get to like 9, 10, they kind of figure out, you know, lying isn't going to get me anywhere because it's bad or, you know, I get caught out, and then they stop.
Amina, it was really nice having you on the show. We need to go because I was really getting into it, but we need to leave because it's time to go. But before we go, just quickly say something for the audience.
I think motherhood is such a big topic. There's no right, there's no wrong. You do what is best for you. You do what is best for your child and your family. And we just need to be very respectful of what another person is doing. Hoyto tarar lagi ekta right ase, but amar lagi right nai. So I shouldn't judge. I shouldn't talk about it. I shouldn't, you know, if I can support them, let me support them. Let's be supportive of each other instead of critical.
Thank you very much, Amina, for coming to the show. শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা, এই ছিল আজকের আয়োজন। তো আশা করি আপনারা আগামী পর্বে আমার সাথে থাকবেন। আবারও দেখা হবে।